Good morning, dear children. Welcome to your English class. This is Swapna, your English teacher. Today we are going to read a beautiful poem, The Fly. Children, this poem was written by Walter de la Mare. He lived from 1873 to 1956. He was a British poet, short story writer and a novelist. He often wrote under the pen name Walter Ramel. Children, do you know the meaning of pen name? Great writers and poets, sometimes they use another name to give to their works that they have written. And that name is called as a pen name. They don't want to use their real name sometimes, so they are known with some other name. There are many writers and poets who use a pen name for their literary works. So Walter de la Mare used Walter Ramel as his pen name. Many of his poems and stories were written for children. He received several awards for his literary works. So children, in this picture, Walter de la Mare for you. This beautiful poem, The Fly, is from the collection Songs of Childhood. In this poem, the speaker thinks about how things that are small to us would look enormous to a fly. He uses different imagery to explain how everything would look different, bigger, brighter, or frightening to the tiny creature. Let us read the poem and comprehend the verse from the perspective of a fly. Okay, and let us scan for details. Children, if you were 6 inches tall, only 6 inches tall, like a Lilliputian, how would things in the classroom appear to you? Do you think it is helpful to see things from someone else's point of view? How? How would you imagine a fly's world and its view about the world to be? So before we go to the details of this poem, let us read the poem. How large unto the tiny fly must little things appear? A rosebud like a feather bed, its prickle like a spear. A dewdrop like a looking glass, a hair like golden wire, the smallest grain of mustard seed, as fierce as coals of fire. A loaf of bread, a lofty hill, a wasp, a cruel leopard, and specks of salt as bright to see as lambkins to a shepherd. Once again, students, how large unto the tiny fly must little things appear? A rosebud like a feather bed, its prickle like a spear. A dewdrop like a looking glass, a hair like golden wire, the smallest grain of mustard seed, as fierce as coals of fire. A loaf of bread, a lofty hill, a wasp, a cruel leopard, and specks of salt as bright to see as lambkins to a shepherd. Students, so before we read the poem and comprehend it, here are some difficult words that you will come across in the poem. So let us read them one by one and try to understand the meanings. Okay? So the first one is unto. Unto is nothing but an old way of saying to. Prickle means thorn. We see thorns on the plant of roses or on a rose plant. we see other than the flower and leaves, we also see thorns. So thorns are also called as prickle. Spear is a weapon with a long thin handle ending in a sharp point. These spears were used as weapons in wars in the past, in the olden times. Looking glass is nothing but a mirror. We all know that. Fierce means dangerous and frightening. Like for example, a lion looks fearful and frightening, is it not? Lofty means tall, high, enormous. Lofty also means something which is tall and very, very high. A wasp is a small black and yellow flying insect that stings like a bee but does not produce honey. In other words, a wasp is nothing but a type of a bee, but they do not produce honey, but they sting and it hurts, okay? And they look very small and they are usually black and yellow in color. And they are also flying insects. Specks means very small pieces. Lambkins, here lambkins means small baby lambs are also called as lambkins. Lambs are also babies of a sheep. Okay, now let us read stanza 1. How large unto the tiny fly must little things appear, a rosebud like a feather bed, its prickle like a spear. So children, from the eyes of a bee, how large things appear, is it not? Because the fly is very, very tiny, very small. So the things around in the world may be looking very large to them. A rosebud may be like a feather bed. So a small rose can look like a bed because it is very, very soft, just like a bed. Its prickle like a spear. The roses also have thorns on them, is it not? So these thorns may be pricking them like a spear. In the picture you can see the spear. Spear is a weapon with a long thin handle ending in a sharp point. So here the thorns are compared to a spear and it may be pricking them like a spear. So once again the stanza goes like this. How large unto the tiny fly must little things appear, a rosebud like a feather bed and its prickle like a spear. A dewdrop like a looking glass and a hair like a golden wire. Dewdrop means the tiny water droplets that you can see on the leaves and plants. So these dewdrops for a small fly may be looking like a mirror because they reflect their picture, is it not? They can show the reflection of themselves. So if a fly is looking at a water drop, it can see its own reflection just like a mirror. So a dewdrop is nothing but a looking glass for a fly. And what about a hair? A hair looks like a golden wires because they are so big and thin and strong for a fly. A dewdrop like a looking glass, a hair like a golden wire. The smallest grain of mustard seed as fierce as coals of fire. So here once again the poet is comparing the mustard seeds as big, fierceful coals of fire in the eyes of a fly. So even the mustard seeds may be looking like pieces of fire, of coal, and they may be looking fearful. A loaf of bread, a lofty hill, a wasp, a cruel leopard. Now, a loaf of bread for a fly may be looking like a very tall and high hill, is it not? Now, just imagine in this picture, you can see the loaf of bread. How big will the fly be in front of the loaf of bread? Very small, is it not? So the bread may look very big and huge for the fly, just like a very big, huge, tall and lofty mountain or a hill. And then what about a wasp? A wasp can be looking like a leopard. That means a wasp is bigger than the fly, okay? So the wasp to the fly's eye may be looking like a cruel leopard, which is dangerous. And specks of salt as bright to see as lambkins to a shepherd. Now you can see the specks of salt means tiny granules of salt or tiny specks or pieces of salt in the eyes of a fly. They may be looking like the sweet lambkins to a shepherd. As in the picture you can see in front of the shepherd, there are so many lambkins and just like small specks of salt, they are looking very beautiful and tiny. So even to the fly, the salt may be looking just like how it looks or how the lambkins looks for a shepherd. Such a lovely and sweet poem, children. Do you think that the fly actually sees the things mentioned in the poem as they are shown? The mustard grains appear to be as fierce as coals of fire. Do you think this is an apt comparison for mustard grains? What does a loaf of bread and a wasp look like to a fly? What do the lambkins look like to a shepherd? Children, you must also read the poem aloud, slowly and clearly. Okay? And visualize the imagery presented in the poem and enjoy for yourself. There are some stylistic devices which are used in the poem to make it more beautiful. So, all poems, the poet uses some stylistic devices inside the poem to make it look wonderful and interesting to read. One of the stylistic devices is the figure of speech. So the figure of speech used here in this poem are the simile and the metaphor. What is a simile? A simile is a comparison between two things using the words like or as a, etc. So for example, her mind is like a sponge absorbing all the details. So in this sentence, like is a simile. What is a metaphor? A metaphor is a comparison between two things where one is said to be the other. When you say something is just like something else, you are using a metaphor. For example, her mind is a sponge that absorbs all details. In this sentence, her mind is nothing but a sponge. So her mind is compared to a sponge. Why? Because her mind also absorbs everything just like a sponge does. So a metaphor is a comparison between two things where one is said to be the other. There are also another stylistic device which is called as the imagery. An imagery can be pleasant as well as unpleasant. Some pleasant imageries in the poem are rosebud like feather bed, dewdrop like mirror. So here it is very pleasant to read these imageries. Rosebud like feather bed and dewdrop is like a mirror. You can also find out other imageries from the poem which are pleasant ones. There are also unpleasant imageries like a thorn like spear. It is not really pleasant to read or imagine about this or think about this. Is it not? A thorn is like a spear. So it doesn't give a very pleasant image in the minds of the reader. So it is an unpleasant imagery. So you can find out many such pleasant and unpleasant imageries from this poem. While reading the poem, you can underline with a pen or a pencil and find them out. Now there are some colorful imageries also. While you read, you can come across words like red rosebud, gold of strand of hair, etc. So you may also find some color imagery from the poem while you read. Then some rhyming scheme are also used in the poem. Rhyming scheme is nothing but the rhyming words that come at the end of each line in each stanzas. In the first stanza, the rhyming words are appear and spear. Find out the rhyming words from the other stanzas also. Okay? Here's a small assignment for you. You have to complete these similes with the correct words from the box. The words from the box are mouse, bird, lion, lamb, bee. For each sentences, find out the simile from the box. Okay, children. So, in this poem, the point of view is that of the poet. Okay. He describes things as he imagines a fly might see them. He shows us that there can be different viewpoint from ours about anything. Is it not, children? So, to teach of us our value point is valid. But we must also learn to respect the point of view of others. So, you may see things in your own viewpoint. Others may see in a different viewpoint. We must all learn to respect the point of view of others, however strange it may seem, because we expect them to respect ours. Is it not? So the theme of the poem is that we must respect others' viewpoint just like we want others to respect our viewpoint. For different people and different ages, things may look differently for them. So this is the right message given from this poem in the perspective of a fly. Okay, children, enjoy your day and enjoy the poem. Have a nice day. Bye-bye. Thank you.